You have to lower your screen. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sure. Just a moment. Sorry. The petals, so many petals. Sorry. Yeah, keep it.
Go keep
I'll
it.
check. Who you reach? 317. Sorry, 327, 14, right?
Put, I don't know, 14 or 15.
Sorry, 15, 15. Yeah, 15. Let's decide the prayers first. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Lokakadamahyam Tadati Sopadantikam Vandeham Shri Padam Gurun Vaishnava Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Savagana Sajivam Saudam Parijanan Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Shri Vishakam Deenabandhu Jagatpate Shago Saptakanchana Gauraki Radhe Vrindavashari Pranamami Vanchakalpatarubhishya Vasindhubhyo Vachapa Putanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Manyamanas Tadaatmanam Anashto Nashtavan Vrisha Nashteham Karne Drashta Nashta Vidya Ivaturam Nashta Vidya Ivaturam Manyamanas Tadaatmanam Nashto Nashtavan Vrisha Nashteham Karne Drashta Nashta Vidya Ivaturam Anyone? Manyamanastadaatmanam manishto nashtavan नष्टहंका हंकरणे दृष्ट नष्टविद्यानिवारः thinking तदा then atmanam himself anashtaha although not lost nashtavat as lost vrisha falsely nashta ahankarane because of the disappearance of the ego drashta the seer nashta vitta one who has lost his fortune iva like aturaha distressed. Translation purport by Divine Vishal Prabhu. Yes. The living entity can vividly feel his existence as a seer, but because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely thinks himself to be lost, like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distressed, thinking himself to be lost. Purport, Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki. Only in ignorance does the living entity think he is lost. If by attainment of knowledge he comes to the real position of his eternal existence, he knows that he is not lost. An appropriate example is mentioned herein, Nashta Vitta Ivatura. A person who has lost a great sum of money may think that he is lost, but actually he is not lost. Only his money is lost. But due to his absorption in the money or identification with the money, he thinks that he is lost. Similarly, when we falsely identify with matter as our field of activities, we think that we are lost, although actually we are not. As soon as a person is awakened to the pure knowledge of understanding that he is an eternal servant of the Lord, his own real position is revived. And living entity can never be lost. When one forgets his identity in deep sleep, he becomes absorbed in dreams. And he may think himself a different person or may think himself lost. But actually his identity continues. But actually his identity is intact. This concept of being lost is due to false ego, and it continues as long as one is not awakened to the sense of its existence as an eternal servitor of the Lord. The Mayavadi philosopher's concept of becoming one with the Supreme Lord is another symptom of being lost in false ego. One may falsely claim that he is a Supreme Lord, but actually he is not. This is the last snare of Maya's influence upon the living entity. To think oneself equal with the Supreme Lord or to think oneself to be the Supreme Lord himself is also due to false ego. Again, Om Ajnana Timiram Dasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I beg blessings of all the devotees who are present. I'm not here to instruct anyone, just to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam. So again, the translation. The living entity can vividly feel his existence as a seer, but because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely thinks himself to be lost, like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distress, thinking himself to be lost. Sarvopadi vinirmutam saparatena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is free from all material designations and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So, this is a verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes very often in all of his lectures, and it's very important because Mahaprabhu also says the same thing. Naham Vipro Nachana Patir Napi Vaishana Shudro. Naham Marni Nachana Naham Marni Nachagraha Patir No Vanasto. Itirva Kintu Portin Nikila Parvananda Purnam Vitapre. Gopi Bhartu Padakamale or Dasa Dasa Anudasa. So, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's statement. And so we have to understand very clearly, I am not a brahmachari, I'm not a grihastha, I'm not a vanaprastha, I'm not a sannyasi. I'm not a brahmana, I'm not a vaishya, I'm not a kshatriya, I'm not a shudra. These are all temporary designations. Mahaprabhu told to Raghunath Das Goswami, Antarnishta Bahir Vyavahar. So he said that in your mind, in your heart, you think of Krishna, you meditate on Krishna, and externally you behave like an ordinary person of this world. So we have to remember this very important point, that whatever we're doing in this world, material world, is just to make things work. We are not, the goal is, that is not our goal. I mean, it's a little strong, but it's very important to understand, because many times there is this confusion between Varnashram Dharma and Bhakti. They're both different things. They're not the same thing. Like Varnashram is just the bottle. Like, there's a honey in a bottle. Varnashram is like the bottle, but it's not a honey. It's not a honey. So our goal of life is not to become a good mother, father, son, daughter, etc. That's not the goal. That's just to give us a platform to practice bhakti. That's all. It's like an ashram is a place where there's not supposed to be shrama, where there's not supposed to be hard work. I mean, hard, useless work. So the purpose of varnashram, or the purpose of anything in this world, is simply to develop our relationship with Krishna, because very important for us to understand that the only thing, the only person, the only situation which can give us real happiness is when we feel in our heart that reciprocation from Krishna, whether it's small or big or whatever it is. And feeling our relationship with Krishna, with the divine couple, is the only way we can actually become happy. Otherwise, there's no way we can ever become happy. So otherwise, if our goal becomes to become a mother, a father, etc., etc., and if you become too much stuck up with that conception, then if we become successful, we'll become proud. And if you become failure in that, we become depressed. And both are useless actually. If you're proud that you're a good person in this world, then very soon you will face the other side. And if you become depressed, then you'll face the other side. So it's just going between up and down, up and down, up and down, and there's no progress really. So our goal is not to establish ourselves in this world. Our goal is to serve Krishna, to relish Krishna consciousness. This wonderful example of the Brahmana in Chaitanya Bhagavat, how the Brahmana is a drinking brahmachari. He hid himself in Srivas Thakur's kirtan, and then Mahaprabhu found him out. Mahaprabhu became very angry. And Srivas Thakur said he only drinks milk. Mahaprabhu said drinking milk is not a qualification to get Krishna prema. So it's really becoming a very pakka Brahmana, being very austere, all these things, they're okay, but they're just an entrance into bhakti. They help to situate us in Krishna consciousness, but they are not bhakti directly. Just like the first verse of Nectar of Instruction, Vachavegam, Manasa Krodavegam, this verse is an entrance into bhakti. It's not bhakti itself. By controlling your tongue, by controlling your mind, that is not bhakti. Bhakti means to engage the senses in the service of the Lord of the senses, and that is Krishna. So should be very clearly understood. Because sometimes we also, as devotees, become so stuck up with so many external ideas. Oh, I have to become very austere. Oh, I have to all these external things. I mean, external things are meant to cultivate internal things, but external things should not become, the end goal of our Krishna consciousness. That's why there are two things: niyamagraha or niyamagraha. Niyamagraha means neglecting the rules and regulations, where that means you are not in a platform to practice bhakti because in the mode of ignorance. Shri Shri Radha Gopi Janavallam Govindachyam. Sorry. Shri Shri Radha Gopi Janavallam Gauri Jad Guru Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I'm sorry. Okay. So, either we neglect the rules and regulations, put ourselves in ignorance, or too much rules and regulations that we completely forget bhakti. So both are not good. Like many times I see people that they are so much stuck up in rules and regulations. And then I remind myself that, hey, we are here to follow Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada is the most practical acharya. So why do we have to add more rules and regulations about what Srila Prabhupada added? So we just have to follow Prabhupada. Like anyone who accepts Krishna consciousness, if you want a happy family life, you want a happy brahmacharya, you want a happy ashram life, just follow Prabhupada. That's it. You can do extra, but you don't have to say something more than what Prabhupada said. Why? Because what Prabhupada said is acceptable to everyone. Everyone will accept because Prabhupada has made the standard like that. If you increase the standard, then unnecessarily you're causing disturbance to those who are not ready to accept that level of Krishna consciousness. So that's why we just have to follow Srila Prabhupada. This is very, very important. It's like Srila Prabhupada said, for those who cannot fast on Ekadashi, no problem. Take Ekadashi Prasad and do Krishna consciousness. It's many small things. Like some devotees, they're so much stuck up with. I should not, I'm not here to criticize, but such small insignificant things, and then they become so stuck up with that they make their family members follow those insignificant things, and then that family member becomes so frustrated they don't want to practice bhakti only because you're putting so many unreasonable restrictions. And of course, there are some reasonable restrictions which we have to follow, but unreasonable restrictions. Like just for the sake of quoting, like, oh, you cannot chant japa without taking bath. Unless you take bath, you cannot chant japa. Srila Prabhupada himself, just for the sake of, understanding, Srila Prabhupada himself, he would wake up, he would wash his hands, mouth, and feet, and start chanting the holy name. So the point is that we have to remember that we are not here to become just good mother, good father, good this, good that. We're here to become devotees. So we are not here to nourish the body or the mind or the ego, the false ego. We're here to nourish the real ego. We're here to nourish the soul. So that's why Raghunath Das Goswami says, na dharmam, na dharma. Don't be too much concerned with dharma or adharma. Of course, we should not become adharma. And the main problem is not adharma. The main problem is become too much attached to dharma. Shrutikana niruktam kilakuru raje radha krishna prachura paricharya niyata. So this is where focus should be. Prachura paricharya, which means with great care, with great attention, worship the divine couple. Raghunath Das Goswami is giving the instruction to the mind. This is the way to control the mind. Because to control the mind, we need to give a very strong, positive alternative. That is what bhakti is. Bhakti means to give positive alternative. So we have to give the positive alternative, and that's very, very important. If you don't give the positive alternative, And we just deny, and speak about control your senses, control your mind, control your senses, control your mind. Definitely will become fried out. So we have to give the mind a positive alternative. And simultaneously, Raghunath Goswami's rules and following the rules and regulations also is described like lines on a stone. So both things are there. Both things are there. But ultimately, what should happen is that our eagerness to practice bhakti should become so intense that following the rules and regulations will become more and more kind of spontaneous, or more and more kind of, what is it? Um, Easy. Just like if you're very eager to come to Mangalarti, then it's easy to overcome whatever obstacles that the body and mind represent. So the eagerness is the most important thing, and the way to fan the eagerness is what we have to mention. How can we fan more eagerness in Krishna consciousness? We know what makes us eager. We know how we can become eager. We have been in situations when we are eager and we're not. So we have to contemplate on how we can become more and more eager to practice Krishna consciousness. So now we come to the main theme of the purport, and that is the levels of spiritual conception. So this is from Mahaprabhu telling Sanatan Goswami. This is for all of us. So Sanatan Goswami asks, "My Lord, who am I?" And Mahaprabhu says, "You are a pure living entity. You are neither the gross material body nor the subtle body composed of mind and intelligence. Actually, you are spirit soul, eternally part and parcel of Supreme Lord Krishna. Therefore, you are his eternal servant. You belong to Krishna's marginal potency. There are two worlds, the spiritual world and the material world, and you are situated between the material and spiritual potencies. You have a relationship with both the material and the spiritual world. Therefore, you are called the marginal potency." So basically, we are right now in marginal position, and we have to go to spiritual potency. We have to become completely spiritual. So the way a normal, conditioned soul, he starts his devotional services first. He becomes a servant of Krishna's devotees. So, like when we think about practically, when we first came to the temple, who were we? Yeah, we were somewhere. We were doing some service, insignificant service. We were not even related with the direct authority in the temple. We were just serving someone. So that's how we start, servant of Krishna's devotees. And then gradually, as we render more and more service to Krishna's devotees, then we slowly start developing the conception of becoming a servant of the spiritual master. The spiritual master, and we become more acquainted, or we should be more acquainted with, especially the scriptures like Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. We should become well acquainted with those things. And then slowly, as we become acquainted with the spiritual master, we identify ourselves, we accept, we in our heart that I'm a servant of my spiritual master. Then actually, we become a servant of Lord Chaitanya's mission. So we, Jai Shri Shri Radha, Gopi Jana, Tapatam, Guru, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we kind of get a service, or we understand what service Lord Chaitanya wants from us in this Hare Krishna movement. So this is the third level of servitorship. And then as we execute that service with humility, with eagerness, slowly our relationship with Krishna begins to blossom. So this is very important for us to understand that relationship with Krishna is actually a very high thing, and it's only possible in a liberated condition. So we can't have a relationship with Krishna, we can't force it. But what we can do is we can seriously engage in Lord Chaitanya's mission. Now, just for the sake of understanding, so how is our relationship with Krishna born, or where is relationship with Krishna born? So it is actually born in the heart of the spiritual master. So when we constantly surrender our ego to him and we constantly struggle to please him, then our attraction for Krishna is born. So that's where our qualification is born. So the spiritual master is basically Krishna's representative, Krishna himself. The reason why Krishna is incarnated as a spiritual master is actually to accept our service. So more and more we cultivate a service attitude, humble service attitude, and we try to serve the spiritual master, then our relationship with Krishna becomes manifested through his mercy. Now, one very important point is that initially our conception of Guru is a single person, and that's very good. But then eventually the conception of Guru takes the position of Guru Tattva. So when we come to this platform, Guru Tattva, then our relationship with Krishna, it becomes more and more clear. Because when we speak of Guru Tattva, then we speak of different spiritual personalities. We speak of different devotees, and we also, Guru Tattva also includes different angas of bhakti. So when we come to that platform and we stop seeing Guru as just as a mortal person of this world, then his mercy can can really reach us. We can really absorb his mercy, because then our conception of a spiritual master is not localized anymore, it's globalized. So then we become uh, qualified, we become ready to receive his mercy. Like His Holiness Ranath Maharaj said one time that if our Guru comes as a dog, we should be able to recognize him. So this is a very profound statement. Like, how can a dog be our Guru? Yeah, because when the disciples' conception of Guru, when the disciples, when as basically the disciple has absorbed the mood of the spiritual master, more and more you absorb the mood, the more and more your conception of a spiritual master becomes more and more globalized, and you see Guru as Guru Tattva, not as just a person. So we can see from our previous acharyas that how they actually um, developed their love for Krishna. So, like Narottam Das Thakur is a wonderful example. Narottam Das Thakur, he started off by cleaning the stool of his spiritual master. He did that for quite some time and then eventually got initiated. And then, because of that very humble, meaningless service attitude, what was the fruit of that? The fruit of that was that he was able to do Manas Seva. It's a very high thing. It's, I mean, nowadays it's not conceivable. Manas Seva means, just for the sake of understanding, that Narottam Das Thakur was actually serving Radha and Krishna in the Leela. And as a result of that, Radharani herself became very pleased with him. And Radharani came and gave him the specific service of boiling milk for the divine couple. So in this way, Narottam Das Thakur achieved his perfection. So this is a wonderful example. I mean, although it's very high, but it's instructive. It's instructive that the fruit of um, service, the fruit of physical seva is the capacity to render mental seva. Srila Prabhupada's example. What was Srila Prabhupada's main service given to him by Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave him the main instruction of book publication. So Srila Prabhupada's main service was actually starting with book publication. So Prabhupada, by book publication, Prabhupada got absorbed in books, and then you can see, I mean, Prabhupada is just showing us his example. So you can see Prabhupada was always having tears in his eyes. Prabhupada was always feeling deep separation from Krishna. So that was Prabhupada's seva, you can say. And of course, Prabhupada expanded that, and that is the real disciple, because real disciple, he understands the heart of Guru. So An instruction that is given is not stagnant. So as you fulfill one instruction, another instruction, another instruction, another instruction. Just like you see Prabhupada's disciples, they start off with one instruction and then they did so much more, did so much more. So that shows that their understanding of Guru's instruction widened over a period of time. And you see, like Shri Ranath Maharaj, what was his main service when he started off in our movement? Deity worship. He was engaged in constant deity worship and eventually started preaching, started traveling, and then Guru, and then so many projects, etc., etc. Yeah. And Shri Indumna Maharaj, what was his service? His service was book distribution, traveling book distribution. So he was engaged in book distribution, and then after doing book distribution for a long time, then eventually he started this festival program. He started making huge festivals, people chanting the holy name and taking Krishna Prasad. And simultaneously, he's also a spiritual master, and now he is giving a lot of deep um, katha on the previous acharyas and on Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. And like that, like, my spiritual master, he actually, his main service was starting again with book publication, with translating proper books. And eventually, so many other projects, so many other responsibilities. So the point, why I gave all these examples is that we have to understand what our service is to Lord Chaitanya. We have to absorb our service, our mind, our senses in service to Lord Chaitanya. And through that, our relationship with Krishna will manifest over a period of time. Because our relationship with Krishna and relationship with Guru are not different. So if our relationship with Krishna is deepening, means our relationship with Guru is also deepening. So if only a relationship with Krishna is deepening and Guru is not deepening, means it's artificial. So both have to happen. That's the bona fide way. So yeah, service is where everything is there. So service. Service is the real connection. Service is the real realization. Service is the real advancement. Service is the real progress. So we have to absorb ourselves in our service as much as possible. So that's where our conception that I am a servant of Krishna, I have a service to Krishna, and the goal of my service is prem. So that's where the conception is established. So, today I want to end here. I don't have that much to speak today. Anyone has any question, comment, or reflection?
Very nice class. Actually, one of my friends, he is practicing Krishna consciousness last 10 years, I think. But somehow he's not ready to take. He has taken shelter from Bhima with that man. But somehow, I don't know whether he has strong desire to take initiation or not. Initiation is not happening because the time is so many ways. Initiation is not happening. He's not kind of. I feel like he's not desiring so much for the initiation. But he preaches a lot. He takes classes online, and Bhagavad Gita classes, 2-3 classes, maybe 3 takes or 4. How to take that like that? His wife is totally against Krishna. She is he's inclined towards Christianity. He has 2 daughters. Along with his 2 daughters, but elder daughters, she is outside. She is the truth. But how are we supposed to practice Krishna consciousness like this without taking classes, without taking initiation? Because how can we take it?
Yeah, bro. I think in this case, from whatever I'm getting inspiration in my heart, I feel the problem is. So Rangnath, His Grace Vrindavan Govind Prabhu's question is that one devotee is there, he's practicing for a long time and he's aspiring, but he's not getting initiated. So why? Well, the reason could be that perhaps he is not very deeply connected to devotees. He is not serving devotees. That is a problem. Because, see, whether we are aspiring or we surrender to Guru, the real demonstration of surrender is in service. So if you serve devotees, You have to serve devotees in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. So it never stops. So could be the reason that by serving devotees, all one's obstacles are destroyed. I mean, they may not be destroyed completely, um, but at least they will not become an obstacle. So that's what I feel. And basically, Guru accepts a person based on how much surrender he wants. Like if he's pleased, okay, this soul has demonstrated this much surrender, then he gives mercy. So basically, just shows that if it's not happening, despite trying in so many ways, that perhaps if he serves devotees more, then he gets devotees' blessings, and the devotees' blessings can actually, you know, remove the obstacle. That's my humble understanding.
Because you said correct, like close to his area, there is a kind of there's no temple as such, but there is a meeting center. They have small meetings like the and he doesn't attach too much to that because he had his own working shop. That's why I tell him very politely. Just to only have your own working shop, but it does kind of false good because of I'm able to preach, I'm able to do, I'm able to preach so many. As long as we go and do service once in a week, otherwise we please participate in Bhakti Ukshas, what the main congregation, main teaching center, they, whatever they conduct. You should also learn something from them, then you can pass on that to your Bhakti Ukshas. But somehow he doesn't attach to that, he doesn't connect to the main Bhakti Ukshas, main congregation center. I think, yeah.
Anyone else online has any question or comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, and pranams to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, I really like that point which you brought about eagerness and how you put it, like we have seen when we have been eager, we have had experiences of how we have been eager and what situations make us eager. So, Prabhuji, how do we enhance our eagerness towards bhakti?
Enhance our eagerness toward
Bhakti.
Yeah. I mean, our eagerness is based mainly on who we are inspired by in bhakti. The more we serve that person, the more we think of that person, and the more we are in the association of that person, our eagerness is felt. Like Srila Prabhupada said, by reading Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, you are worshipping the lotus feet of, you are worshipping the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami. And by practicing what he has written, you're actually rendering service to him. So when we serve those who have Vaishnava qualities, then we get those qualities, then we get an eagerness. So yeah, that's why it's very important to be closely connected, as you are very wonderfully connected to His Prabhu. So definitely you will get his mercy, his eagerness. That is a practical solution to the problem, because how and when we become eager is actually not in our control, but what is in our control is actually service and the mood. The mood is the most important thing. See, when we have the correct mood, even if we fail in the physical execution, still we get a lot of benefit. So the point is that initially we are connected to one person, but then we connected to many people. Like for example, initially, suppose you connected to Kishore Prabhu, that's good. And then, I mean, that's wonderful. And then through him, you connected to Shilanath Maharaj. Then through him, you connected to Prabhupada. And through Prabhupada, you connected to previous acharyas. So now you have access to so many pure devotees. And of course, that does not mean your initial connection becomes weak, rather it becomes stronger and stronger. So initially our conception of our Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru is kind of little material. Then it becomes more and more kind of spiritual, more and more divine. So yeah, so by pleasing and serving them, sometimes for us to utter one prayer, deep prayer from the core of the heart. It takes many decades, because until we come to the level of consciousness, we can actually utter that kind of prayer. So yeah, so when we associate and we serve, then we actually get this eagerness. And the source of this eagerness comes actually when the person who is surrendering to, when they accept us as their own. So when they actually accept us in their heart as their own, as oh, this person is, I mean, through service only, this person is very dear to me. So when that kind of feeling comes in the heart of the person we are surrendering to, then the qualities, the consciousness, the mood, everything becomes transformed. Just like Haridas Thakur, that prostitute, although that prostitute is a prostitute because he's a pure, elevated, liberated saint, because he accepted the surrender of that prostitute. That's why instantly she got the qualification to chant 3 lakhs and become a pure devotee. So yeah, so that's when it happens. When they're pleased with our surrender, they accept us as their own, and they start transferring, they start praying, then actually things start happening. Directly we cannot, but by pleasing, by serving. To serve means to please. So when we do that, then eagerness comes from them. Eagerness is, of course, we cultivate eagerness, that's good. We should do that. But the real spontaneous eagerness comes by pleasing Vishnu. That is my humble answer.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Helpful. Very grateful.
Anyone else has any other question or comment on Zoom? Okay, if nobody has any other question or comment, please forgive me if I spoke anything wrong. I hope you bless me that I can become eager and become serious in Krishna consciousness. Vanchikalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhu bhirevacha paritana pavanebhyo Vaishnava vinodam Takoti Vaishnava and the Shila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.